Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Jessica Richards. I'm a master's student at the University of Winchester, studying the MSc in Animal Welfare Science, Ethics and Law. Today I'll be presenting my assignment for the module Animal Welfare Issues 2, where I'll be discussing the exotic pet trade. During this presentation, I will introduce the exotic pet trade before moving on to discuss the following: pet populations, consumer demand and motivations, the welfare issues and dangers of exotic pets, the potential benefits of the trade, recommendations, and conclusion. So what is an exotic pet? There's no fixed definition. However, they're generally understood as a wild animal kept in captivity in a domestic setting, an animal kept as a pet for non-utilitarian reasons, and have a short domestic history. The exotic pet trade is a major global business. However, in many scenarios, it remains virtually unrecorded. The trade can be legal or illegal, depending on the species' International Union for Conservation of Nature status, also known as the IUCN status, across political and national borders. So regarding exotic pet statistics, there are very few reliable figures available. However, the Pet Food Manufacturers Association, the PFMA, do an annual pet survey. As you can see, there is a clear increase in pet population in the UK annually. Numbers for some species have more than doubled from 2018 to 2021. This increase is also seen in the United States, where exotic pet populations, more than 13% of households own an exotic pet in 2016. This is a 25% increase from 2011. Figures for exotic animals are not included in these statistics. They're usually hard to find, and such species are usually unregulated or illegally captive. So as you can see, birds were very popular. However, there is a mass market for reptile species. Approximately 70% of reptiles owned in the UK belong to the 6 species of beginner reptiles that you can see on the right. Demand is growing and there are no supply shortages at the moment. An online study of classified websites identified at least 152 exotic species of animals for sale in only a 3-month time span. These included endangered species such as the Egyptian tortoise, the high welfare requirement species such as the scarlet macaw, and dangerous wild animals like hybrid cats. The animal charity Born Free has estimated that in 2018 there was a population of 4,825 licensed dangerous wild animals. In 2020 there was a total of 210 Dangerous Wild Animal Act licenses granted. These species included 320 wildcats, 274 primates, 158 crocodilian, 508 venomous snakes, 332 scorpions, 106 venomous lizards, and 2 elephants. It is believed that these estimates are significantly underrepresented of actual numbers in the UK. Other species on the dangerous wild animal list that are kept as pets or in private collections in the UK include zebras, camels, fossa, hyena, sun bears, wolves, and otters. Here's an example of a DWA application form from Waltham Forest that applicants must fill in order to obtain a license. So moving on to consumer demand and motivation then. Historically, the keeping of animals was predominantly based on a utilitarian perspective. However, modern times, culture and society has resulted in a variety of different reasons. These include species rarity, behaviour, aesthetics, cultural factors, media and popular culture portrayal, social status, ostentation, and other anthropocentric motivations. For example, a consumer research study in Tokyo revealed that the 2 main motivations behind owning exotic pets in Japan were the kawaii factors, which means the cuteness, and the sense of iyashi, mental healing properties. These were similar motivations for owning other types of pets. Rarity of the species was not a leading factor in respondents from Japan. The top external influencing factors for demand included social media, 45%, television, 32%, and family and relative influence, 29%. This has resulted in a plight of species, for example, the small-clawed otter, which are threatened. In Japan, this resulted from a mass media influence, leading to an increase in exotic otter cafes, causing a sudden increase in illegal trade from Southeast Asia. Things are slightly different. For example, in the Indonesian islands of Java and Bali, exotic pet demand is highly influenced by ostentation, culture, and social status. Keeping exotic birds, for example, is a symbol of accomplishment and settlement, and the instance of keeping rare and expensive birds increases from lowest to highest income categories, with rare and threatened species highly desirable, such as the Javan hawk eagle, in a number of upper classes. Many television and media outlets have influenced exotic pet ownership demands. For example, the upsurge in trade in terrapins following the release of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film, iguanas following Jurassic Park. The release of the film Finding Nemo resulted in an estimated 40% demand increase for clownfish. This resulted in a 75% decrease in wild populations and even some local extinctions in some parts of South and Southeast Asia. Similarly, the demand for pet axolotls at the moment has been sparked by the popularity of the video game Minecraft, the RSPCA have warned. So moving on to welfare concerns. Motivations for owning exotics can be solely based on genuine interest in species, although studies have found that welfare is generally compromised regardless. Exotic pet species have very specific welfare needs, and specialist husbandry is required to ensure survival in captivity, which the vast majority of pet owners cannot facilitate or even lack the expertise to ensure optimal health and well-being. Many exotic animals suffer from compromised welfare throughout the whole trade process, from capture or captive breeding to being sold or owned. The welfare of exotic animals during capture, captivity, market, and transportation are often overlooked due to the accommodation being temporary. However, statistics regarding tortoises in an exotic pet market in Morocco show that approximately 25% of animals were exposed to poor living conditions for an extended period of time, 10 to 12 weeks minimum. Similarly, a study on more than 26,400 animals that were confiscated from an anonymous wildlife wholesaler found that approximately 80% of the animals were either extremely unwell, injured, or dead due to poor living conditions. The mortality rate across all the species was approximately 70% during 6 weeks at the wholesalers. The act of wild capture and transportation could cause several welfare implications: physical injury, fear and distress, starvation, dehydration, disruption of wild social networks, suffocation, and frequent mortality. Also, capture methods such as snares, traps, nets, cages, sedation darts, these are all often carried out by local residents who have received little to no training in ethical animal capture. The equipment can also cause injury and severe distress. A trauma scale was developed to assess and monitor international trapping standards. This originated from the fur industry, however it is still widely used. It must be noted that the accumulation of what are frequently referred to as small stresses that you can see are acceptable can result in chronic stress long term. Comprehensive veterinary literature shows that many welfare concerns associated with exotic pets include reptiles suffering from all of metabolic musculoskeletal diseases, thermal burns, abrasions, physical injuries, respiratory issues, etc. African grey parrots suffering from hypocalcemia syndrome, respiratory infections, behavioural issues. Sugar gliders suffering also from hypocalcemia, hypoproteinemia, anemia, and metabolic musculoskeletal diseases, also behavioural problems. Reptile mortality has been estimated to be approximately 75% in the first year of captivity in the UK. Similarly, a British Veterinary Association survey found that 49% of reptiles seen at the vets were not having their 5 needs met, according to the Animal Welfare Act. In 2018, 15,790 calls were made to the 24-hour cruelty hotline regarding exotic pets alone. This is approximately 1 per hour. Over 4,000 exotic pets were rescued by the RSPCA in 2018. Some of the examples include a dead royal python was found in a street with evidence of physical abuse to its mouth area. 2 stray raccoon dogs, a bearded dragon abandoned in a shoebox next to bins, and a dead marmoset monkey in the middle of the street. Many sales of exotic pets are untraceable. Therefore, it's very difficult to determine demographics such as the origin of the animal, the health status, the age, the sex, etc. So moving on to the dangers. First, the danger to humans. The Dangerous Wild Animals Act of 1976 allows any person in Britain to keep a dangerous animal, so long as they can obtain a licence. The licence only requires proper demonstration of containment of the animal. It does not focus on the welfare of the animal. The Act has not been updated in 40 years, meaning many dangerous species are not covered, such as the Komodo dragon, large constrictor snakes, and other large monitors. Very frequently, the Act's rules are not followed, and many do not have a licence in the first place. Keeping dangerous animals results in dangerous situations, especially regarding human health. For example, a hybrid savannah cat escaped captivity in a busy area of London. A 7-foot-long captive boa constrictor was found in a back garden and attacked a rescue on the Isle of Sheppey. A python attacked a woman in the eye in the middle of a club in London, and a man was killed by an 8-foot-long African rock python in Hampshire, England. The dangers of invasive species and non-native populations. The international exotic pet trade plays a key factor in some species extinction. Although most exotic pets are being transported to captivity, many are released or escaped. For example, in Florida, nearly 85% of individuals being introduced of non-native reptiles were via the exotic pet trade. An example of this is the introduction to the Burmese python. Since the 1980s, it has been an invasive species in Florida, where a captive staph was released and it acclimatized to a non-native environment. This has resulted in population decreases of native species such as bobcats, rabbit, and opossum. Another example is the red-eared slider. This is a common turtle species in the United States for exotic pet keepers. However, the species is native to south-central regions in the US. It has now established populations in numerous non-native regions of the US, including Hawaii. 70% of non-native mammals invasions in Brazil resulted from the pet trade, and the primary cause of new non-native populations of amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and birds in Europe are due to exotic pet escapes and releases. The invasion of non-native or invasive species can spread unfamiliar pathogens and introduce diseases to native wild populations in destination countries, resulting in morbidity, mortality, and even local extinctions. The danger of zoonotic diseases and public health. This wildlife trade is a major contributor to global zoonotic disease outbreaks. The prevalence of zoonosis from exotic pet ownership is rising. Illegally imported species or unlicensed animals do not receive health checks or any valid health certificate before entering a destination country, posing a great risk to public health. For example, in 2012, there was approximately 74,000 reported cases of reptile-based salmonellosis in the US and 6,000 cases in the UK. 27% of children affected under the age of 5 years old were hospitalized in southwest England. Other zoonotic pathogens that have been transmitted through exotic pets include hantaviruses, Bartonella, lymphocytis, chromomeningitis. This is a particular threat to pregnancy. Mycobacterium, ringworm, Yersinia, West Nile virus, rabies, tetanus, and many more. Now, there are some benefits of the exotic pet trade for some people. It's classed as the fourth most profitable international global crime after drug trade, weapon trade, human trafficking. Therefore, the demand is there, the trade will resume. However, the legal side of the exotic pet trade is extremely profitable for economies, especially those with a smaller economy. It generates between 31 to 43 billion US dollars annually, as well as providing economic stability for hundreds of self-sustaining communities and workers. It has been argued that the exotic pet trade can also benefit conservation as well as economic gain. For example, wild crested gecko populations have increased from near extinction due to captive breeders. So recommendations and the conclusion then. Animal charities Born Free, the RSPCA, have all called on the UK government to revise and amend legislative documents such as the Animal Welfare Kept Animals Bill, the Dangerous Wild Animals Act of 1976, in an attempt to reduce exotic trade. This will prevent risks associated with exotic pet keeping. These actions could be utilised internationally, with legislation and regulations either created or more strongly regulated in an attempt to minimise concerns surrounding public health and animal welfare, as well as attempting to combat illegal trade and activity. In terms of consumer demand, some suggest education and public awareness can be beneficial. A study found that informing potential buyers of the health, welfare, legislative, and conservation concerns associated with specific species, it deterred sales by up to 40%. Linking to an earlier discussed study on demand for exotic species in Japan, 68% of respondents were unaware of any potential risks associated with exotic pet keeping. After being informed, 95% expressed concerns surrounding the trade in general. Following on from education, social media and mass media outlets could be utilised to increase public awareness regarding concerns around the exotic pet industry. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, please email me with the email that is on the cover title page. Here are my references.